Nice little lick at the end there, Sonny. That's kind of a signature Sonny T lick. Welcome to a brand new season of Cory and the Wong Notes. Today's episode is all about imitation. Now, we all learned how to play music by imitating our heroes, and then eventually putting our own thing on it and finding who we are as individuals. Imitation can help us along the way sometimes. I think inherently we like to imitate the things that we really enjoy. Sometimes it's for fun, sometimes it's out of necessity. Sammy eats imitation meat all the time. They say imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but there's a fine line between tasteful imitation and cheap and cheesy impersonation. What's the deal with that? I mean, flattery is the greatest form of flattery. Am I right? Have you ever tried to give someone a compliment by imitating them? Like, your mom made a delicious broccoli hot dish for dinner, so you say, "Hey mom, I loved your broccoli hot dish so much, I made you a broccoli hot dish." She already has a hot dish. Just tell her you like it. Now you've got two hot dishes. Nobody needs two broccoli hot dishes. But seriously, folks, as a musician, it's tough to find a balance between being influenced by the performers you admire and ripping them off. In fact, if you've ever... you know this one. If you've ever written a song and then realized it had the same chord progression as Steely Dan, you might be a musician. If you've ever wondered, is it even possible to do something new? Or has every song been written? You might be a musician. Sometimes it feels like everything's been done before. But there's never been another you before. So take what resonates with you and add your own voice. We got a good show for you. Stick around.
When you suffer from bad tone, every session feels like a struggle. Now there's hope. Introducing Compressix. Compressix is the only single-dose compressor tablet clinically proven to improve tone. Compressix works with your guitar's natural frequencies to control pokey transients, increase your sustain, and bring you one step closer to that smooth, dumble sound that you both crave. Compressix is not for everyone. Do not use Compressix in combination with an LA2A leveling amp or 1176 plug-in. Do not take Compressix while driving or operating heavy machinery. Tell your doctor if you experience effects lasting more than 10 hours.
Thank you, Compressix. Because of you, I got my tone back, and I got my confidence back.
And I'm pretty happy with his tone, too.
Compressix, because every stroke deserves a boost.
Sometimes with imitation, we're taking different influences from different eras and different places and putting our own thing on it. So for this next tune, I took some of the production stylings of David Byrne and the Talking Heads and vocal production styles of Bon Iver and did my own thing with it. Here's Power Station.
But first, you must accept the permissions. Okay, yeah. Take me to the power station. Charge me up. Take me to the power station. Charge me up. Charge me up now.
What's happening, people of the internet? We're hanging out with our new friend here. You may know him as the artist Big Wild. Jackson, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is the first day that we met. although we have been collaborating over emails and Zooms and phone calls and text messages for the last couple months, so it's nice to finally hang in person.
Yeah, it's great to meet you and great to be here.
It's fun to play with this band, isn't it?
Yeah. I just sound like Tony the Tiger there, sorry.
Well, with the great?
Great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does that reference still exist?
I don't think anybody
is he
gets
still
it.
part of...
If you were born in the 90s, you get it, otherwise.
Yeah. That's okay, though.
Yeah.
Now, the fun thing about meeting somebody in person, we talked about this after the first take, is like you don't know coming in with the band, we don't know with you coming in, all right, the demos are awesome, but how's this going to work live? Is it actually going to be live and work good? Because that's how we do it,
Yeah.
as you know. So you came in and it's like, oh, dang, this dude can sing. I mean, I was so surprised at how consistent your falsetto was that whole thing.
Well, thank you, first of all. But I was thinking like earlier today, I was like, man, I'm coming in like a little cold. Like, I don't know what the horns are going to sound like, hearing everything together. But like, obviously knowing what you guys do on this show, I was like, okay, I'm sure it's going to be great. And then to feel the band behind my voice, I swear that just like adds so much to my own performance. Yeah, no, it was really cool. It felt like the puzzle came together today, so to speak, you know?
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah.
So there's 11 of us plus you, 12 of us on stage. Every time I've seen you play live, it's been just you.
Yeah.
How do you pull that off?
It's a lot. It was nice to like have a more like simplified role where I'm just like, okay, I'm singing today.
Yeah.
Play some chords. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm slowly like creating a more diverse show. I got Haley Johnson on bass and vocals, Maddie Rice on guitar and vocals, Jessie on like singing her songs, and like, so I'm like kind of branching out more, you know?
Sure.
It's like, it's a lot, it can be a lot to juggle sometimes, but I just find a little bit of everything that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I like to bring it together for people at the show.
Yeah.
You know?
Is there certain things that you're more comfortable just doing by yourself than with a band or with other people around, whether it be writing or performing?
Definitely writing. I like to just kind of be in my own space, you know? But performing, like, honestly, I haven't done too much of like what we did today. But what we did today was like, it was amazing. So it's like, performing with people is like, I mean, you can't beat it.
We talked about this sort of thing where sometimes when there's a laptop on stage or there's, like you were triggering sounds from your keyboard that are not live instruments, but you're like hitting a button that cues a sound. You are playing a sound. You are playing it live.
Yeah.
In the same way that the saxophone presses a button and blows air.
Right.
And it makes sound.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you have stuff that's so structured to think about, here's me playing this instrument and it's not a typical analog instrument,
right?
But you are playing this thing that's triggering sounds in the same way that a saxophone or a guitar, pressing buttons and hitting the strings or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you approach triggering samples, playing pads and that sort of thing versus your actual keyboard stuff? Like when do you decide to put stuff in trigger pads, play it live, that sort of thing?
I really just like to keep the simple, like little sound effects, little like we were doing vocal chop things. It's like the pads, and because as like nice as that is, it's still like you just can't be expressive with it really. You can make it louder, you can make it softer, but like when you're playing that note on a sax, you can play that note in a million ways, you know?
Yeah.
There's like a physicality to it.
Yep.
So I try and like really balance doing things digitally with something that's live in the moment. I'm physically doing it, like singing, playing keys. And like finding that balance is really important to me because I think both analog, digital have so much to offer.
Totally.
And I really like to find like a crossroads, you know? And so usually for like pads and stuff, I just find like the things that are like really unique and distinguishable to that song and just keep it to that. You know, something, you can't play a vocal chop through a trumpet. I mean, you can play the melody, but the timbre and everything is different. Timbre, sorry. But yeah, that's kind of how I go about balancing the natural and the unnatural.
Now, you and I both dabble in the instrumental music versus songs with vocals. You're a much better singer than I am. So you could pull it off in a different way. I have a very specific type of voice that works okay for some songs on lead, but you don't want me to sing lead on most things. I was looking through your catalog. Is the most of your earlier stuff all instrumental?
Yeah.
Is the vocal thing new?
Yeah, like the first time I really started to sing on my music, well, the very first time was this song called Crickets, which came out in 2017. But that was just like dipping a toe in the water. And then my last album, Super Dream, was, okay, I'm getting more into this space. I really like it. And then the new music I've been working on is like furthering that direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has been a transition because I come really from like a production background.
Yeah.
But like, I just love exploring new areas, new sounds, new instruments, and the voice is one that in particular has really grabbed me. So it's like becoming more of my project.
Yeah. Which surprises me so much. Like I said, when we're performing, your vocal is so consistent. Have you always been a singer then?
Not really, actually.
That's crazy to me.
I actually would whistle a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I was always like in the car, I'd always whistle all the melodies, whistle the harmonies. I mean, I was singing falsetto today. I would sing a lot of falsetto, like harmonies on things.
Got
and
it.
just like, but I was never like, I wasn't taking lessons or anything. I wasn't like serious about it. And then when I really want to get more into it on my last album, I connected with my wife's choir teacher from her high school.
Yeah.
Michael Nahar, and he has like helped me out so much in like developing my voice, and it's just been like a learning process ever since. Yeah, I've been really fortunate to connect with some people who not only just like support me and are like down for the cause, but also just are really knowledgeable and like and know what they're doing. So they kind of help steer me on like the right path as I'm learning more about my voice, you know?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, I want to change gears a little bit. I guess it's not that different, but the learning aspect. When we learn instruments like the guitar, the piano, the saxophone, there's like a method book. There's a path, a pretty clear path if you're playing the sax or the piano. And of course, there's a couple. You could do Suzuki method, or you could learn, how to read from the beginning. There's a lot of different ways that you can learn an instrument, but there are very clear paths. This is kind of a method, a pedagogy for these things. The producing lane, the modern music, pop music lane, if you're a producer, if you are doing a lot of the electronic music like you're doing or have done, there's not really a clear method book for that.
Yeah.
How did you learn, and how do you suggest people to learn that craft and that instrument skill?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. It's pretty tricky because, I feel like now, as producing's become more of a thing, more like people are getting into using Ableton, Logic, and stuff like that, I've noticed there are more like courses popping up online, and I think like slowly, maybe there's like a consensus of like, this is the way to do it. But the fact that production spans every genre, you can never truly have like a standardized course because it's always changing. It's always can sound so different. And really for me, like what got me into it was like wanting to make hip hop beats. Like when I was in middle school, I got this program called Fruity Loops. And it was just like, I would experiment with it and just learn, try to mimic what I really loved. And it sounded terrible for a long time. But like, and what's funny is like, I listened back to it and I think it sounded bad, but at the time I was like, this is badass. Like, I thought it was so cool. So it's like almost that naivety, I think, kept me going. Yeah. But what I love about production, I think, is the fact that it's kind of like a free-for-all. Like, I used to take piano lessons in like first and second grade, and after like a year, I remember like I would purposely forget my music book just so I could go outside and play, and like it just never clicked with me. Like I always had trouble with it, but it wasn't until I like got into production and started like feeling like I was more writing, like songwriting, at least instrumental music. That's when just like music clicked for me. So I feel like for anybody trying to get into production, man, it's really like, I think one of the best things to do is obviously create a lot, just very consistently, just like keep working. And like whatever is inspiring you, like especially when you're new, just try and like copy it. Try and figure out how they made that sound. Yeah. And you start to really develop an ear, develop techniques, and then you'll come into your own sound. If you're still like passionate about it, you're gonna find your own sound, and that's the ultimate goal, in my opinion.
How do you define your sound?
Your sound is something that nobody else can really get anywhere else. So it'd be like, what I try and do with my music is I try and follow like a simple rule of like, I wanna make music that I really love, that connects with a lot of people, but they wouldn't be able to find elsewhere. And I realized that the way to do that is really to like follow your individual like taste and sound and ideas and really believe in that. And you just keep working at it, and eventually you will have something that's like, wow, this is like an embodiment of me in sound. You know?
You said a word there that I've been thinking about as far as the artists I like and what it is I like about them. What do they bring to the table? What can I bring to the table as an artist? What can you bring to the table as an artist? Each of us as individuals. I've realized that part of what people are into, part of what I'm into in some of my favorite artists, isn't always just the way that they play or their songwriting, but so much this other piece of it is their taste. When do you bring in the horns? How much of them do you do? How much harmonic information does each instrument bring to the table? How much subdivision? And the taste of whatever artist you're listening to is going to determine that sort of thing.
There's no like rule for that, you know? You can't be like, it should always have this amount, or it should always come in this point. So it's like, that's really where it's like a completely creative decision at that point. So your taste and like believing in that too is really important.
And I think that's something also for, of course it applies to instrumentalists, traditional instrumentalists like piano player, drummer, guitar player, or whatever. But as far as the production lane, people who are making music with samples or with loops, some people would consider it like, oh, you're just taking things and copying and moving them around. It's like, well, no, it is making music because you're just taking these sounds, but you are using your taste on when to bring things in and out, what kind of sound you want to make, what kind of environment you want to create for the sonic palette of a given song.
I think like production really is just another form of songwriting. You know, it's like kind of because you can create a whole world. You can create, and that's what I loved about it when I was first getting into it, and what I still love about it is like, I can figure out the drum track and the bass track, and then like, I like really focus in on like, how am I gonna make these two work together so it's just like the ultimate groove. And like, okay, now bring in the guitar, and how am I gonna like fit that into this? And it's just like, I love balancing all these different things to come together into something that's much greater than their individual selves. That's one of the most like satisfying things for me as a producer, personally.
Now, like I said, we just met today, and we've had some Zoom calls and other things. You strike me as a bit of an introvert. But you're big, wild. That's amazing.
The irony of it, I'm glad the irony, you got it. I think to me, like Big Wild is meant to be like maybe an alter ego or something, like where I feel comfortable just like be out there, sing with my voice, show my sound. Like I think it's really the counterbalance to what I normally like, which is pretty quiet and like keep to myself. Big Wild is really like meant to embody that.
Do you feel like you're playing a character when you get on stage?
I don't. I feel like I'm just expressing a different part of me, but it doesn't feel like I'm having to like, okay, here we go. Like Big Wild. Okay, cool. Like I can just go out and do it. And I think it's just for some reason being on a stage or performing helps me switch into that mindset a lot easier than if I were just in a normal, you know, everyday situation.
I feel like when I perform, it's exactly me bumped up 10% to kind of
Cory 2.0.
Well, it's like Cory plus 10%. You know, as far as personality, to really telegraph a little more, and just to bump up because we are entertainers when we're on stage, you know, and when we're
and I think it's really important to communicate with people, and sometimes it's through our actions, we just make it clearer, and we make like people feel something more, which is like really at the end of the day, the most important part.
Do you feel like you have particular songs or particular music that you've done that really represents who you are as a person?
I'd like to think that all my songs represent who I was, at least at that point in time.
Yeah.
I have songs talking about like my move across the country that I did when I moved from Massachusetts to California and really full on pursued music, and just like different phases of my life. So I think like my music, and this is probably that way for a lot of artists, like if you go through your catalog, it's like almost a documentation of your life and where your head's at.
Yeah.
I can't really pinpoint it to one song.
Yeah. Next thing I want to ask you about, totally fine if you don't want to touch on it. I'm going to preface it with a personal story. I had a health scare when I was a teenager. I had a health incident where I had a TIA, which you don't know what a TIA is until you or somebody close to you has had it. But it's a transient ischemic attack, basically like a mini stroke, right? And I had a thing where my right arm would go numb all the time, and I'd be driving, and all of a sudden my arm would just...
Oh, wow.
And I had a stick shift at the time.
Oh.
So I would have to like, oh shoot, I had to pull over and,
Yeah.
And I would be carrying a box and be like, oh my gosh, my arm is numb. I got
Yeah.
I'd play guitar and it would just kind of not work.
Yeah.
Super scary. And, doctors saying to me, oh, it might be a blood clot. You could die in the next week. Like, really, you're kidding.
Yeah.
I'm 16. I just got my driver's license. I got so much ahead of me.
Yeah.
And it really changed my perspective on, it totally flipped the script for me. I was all of a sudden, okay, I'm gonna live every day. This is my last summer. I just got my license. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna live every day like I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
And it gave me a different perspective on the fact that I could die.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave any bad blood between me and literally anybody else. I want to have fun. I want to feel like I've left a good legacy. And I think that's part of what drives me even now, why I do so much music, is like I still have somewhere ingrained in me this could be it.
Yeah.
Although, that thing is gone now. I've healed from all that and whatever.
But that's such like an impressionable age too.
Totally. I heard that you had a health scare of your own.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I don't know a lot about it. I'm curious of how you found out about it, kind of what it was and how it's affected you on the personal level and in your artistry since then.
Yeah, it was actually right before I moved to California, so it would have been 2013. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and thankfully it was really, really early, but I had to go through, first of all, anytime you hear that kind of diagnosis, it's like, okay, it's nerve-wracking. And then knowing you have to go through surgeries, knowing like, it makes you uncertain of the future, like you were saying. I had a similar experience in that it made me want to appreciate the time I had. And like, I actually have a song kind of about this called Maker, where it's like, it's really about me envisioning what it, in an imaginary world, what it could have been like if I was like right there, right near the end, but realizing it's not my time and feeling very fortunate about that. And therefore, it's like it starts there, and then as the song progresses, it's like it's supposed to be a celebration of life and realizing how special it is, and really never taking that for granted. And like, it sounds kind of weird to say it, but I almost feel grateful for like having that experience with being diagnosed with cancer and going through surgeries and having my thyroid removed, because it feels like I can carry this perspective with me, and I can like always draw on it. Inevitably, there's definitely times where I'm like, oh man, this just sucks, like life can be really hard. And but it's something I can draw upon a lot of those times and just be like, you know what, it could be a lot worse. You are healthy right now. Like, don't take that for granted. And like, I'm almost grateful to have gone through that experience, because it gives me the ability to like flash to that perspective. Like you, I feel like it totally has shaped my life. And like when I went through like all the treatment and stuff, that's when I traveled and moved across the country to California, and I felt like I was in this new beautiful place and was just like so inspired. And that's really when I first started doing Big Wild. And I think it was like, it felt like a new chapter and like a new beginning. Like just that period of time going from like something that was very difficult and scary and like feeling like this could be the end of my life, you know, to being so fortunate to get through it, being healthy, and to have like all this like ambition to go and pursue music and carpe diem. I know that's a cliche, but
it's only a cliche until you recognize it for yourself and then, or really feel it. Then it's totally real.
That was kind of the beginning of this whole music project, and I feel like really dictates how I try and live my life and how I try and make music, you know?
Yeah. Going into the future, your music career, your personal life, you're a handful of years outside of this. Do you approach your travel, do you approach your life differently because of that experience? Do you have certain things now that you have to look out for?
Because of my experience with cancer?
Yeah.
I will say, like, I mean, beyond like having my perspective shift, I try to live I try to still like, you know, like, it's funny because when I reflect on that period of time, like one of the first feelings that comes to my head when I like think back is like fear, because it's just like, it's scary to go through that. It's scary to think of it. And I think one of the things that experience dictates going forward is like what I was just talking about, but it's also like, it's not like living in that kind of fear is just not a good way to live, you know?
Totally.
And everybody's situation's different, and I can't speak to everybody, but for me personally, it's like, I reflect on that and I'm like, I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
Personally, if I can have control over that, control over like my mind going back and like, well, what if something happens again? I mean, honestly, if I live long enough, something probably will happen again, but that's why you have to come back to like, well, I have today, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have to, but I'm making an active choice to live today to like the fullest, trying to be a good person, trying to like carry out my goals, trying to like bring more love into the world. Whatever motivates me, I try and do that.
That's exactly it. I think we can all live in the fear of things that have happened to us or happened for us or happened around us, depending on what the situation is. And yeah, like exactly what you're saying is I connect with that so much. Like I could live in the fear of, well, I don't want to put out albums or play shows because if this thing happens with my right arm again, and it just like doesn't work for 20 minutes and I can't just stop the show. But again, I think that is something that helps motivate me on wanting to be a better person, wanting to put out my best art at all times, because I have a certain perspective of this is a gift to be able to do it in the now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too, like sometimes I can be susceptible to like thinking about, well, about focusing on the things that could go wrong in a situation, or like for example, today I was like, I just get in my head, I'm like, man, like what if I just mess up these lines, because sometimes I have trouble hitting that pitch, or like it's really important for me to try and draw that back and be like, well, if you can focus on what could go bad, you can focus on what can go good too.
Absolutely.
And like, and that's like kind of focusing on what could go wrong or bad is really living life in a more fearful way versus what could go good is living life in a more loving way. So it's like, and I believe in a balance of two, but if you know you kind of skew on, which I know I personally do, on like fear, I just need to keep myself in check and try and just like enjoy a bit, you know?
Totally. All right, to close out, I have this thought about my own music, and I'm curious where you're at with it. As we evolve as artists, as we move into the future and grow and get older, I know that what I do, like this is a loud, big band. Am I gonna wanna do this when I'm 60? Is it gonna sound and feel the same way? I don't know. How am I gonna, I'm always curious. I have all these interests in other things too, and there are plenty of examples of people, look at the Rolling Stones, look at you know, Paul McCartney shows, you know, or whatever. Do you feel like your music and what how you're gonna approach music in the future is gonna change based on, I've been doing a lot of loud festivals the last 30 years.
Yeah, I definitely think it will. Every time I make an album or every time I make like a new body of work, it's like something in me has changed where I'm like, okay, I want to make something different.
Yeah.
And I feel like as I get older, I'm like always envisioning like, will I want to play this, for example, when I'm 60 or like,
yeah.
And I also focus on the songwriting too. Like, will this song still be like relevant to my life or to other people's lives in the future? It's like, I try and really focus on things that I think might be timeless or like classic, because I do want to make a long career out of my music. And I don't want to, I've always had this kind of like, again, back to like thinking what could go wrong. I always have this kind of impending doom of like, man, what if I'm on stage playing music I don't like anymore? Like that to me is like a scary thought. And thankfully everything I put out, I'm really into. I don't put out music I don't love, which is step number one.
Yeah.
Step number two is like, try and like, don't predict the future, but like focus on things that you think are just like kind of always make a song timeless and classic, and it will never feel old. It'll always feel relevant. It'll always feel like you are putting your heart into it, and that's never gonna feel old. So, you know, in regards to sonics, like, yeah, I have some older songs that are like, I might not play, you know, when I'm older, because it's more like they just would not fit the vibe.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can just appreciate them for what they are.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing this thing recently where they're called analog sessions, and it's like more stripped back, low key things of like some of the songs I sang on Super Dream, and just like acoustic guitar, vocals, harmonies from the other members of the band, and that's it. And that's been cool. Like 5 years ago, I never would have thought of doing that. So it's like, it's always kind of evolving, half trying to like predict where it would go and half just like, all right, I'm along for the ride, you know?
Yeah. You touched on something funny there I was thinking about what it would be like to write a hit song. We all want to write hit songs, right? But there's also kind of this curse with it. Fortunately for me, like, let's say I'm the performer, like, Virtual Insanity is my song now, or Purple Rain is my song. Everybody wants to hear that at every gig. If you're going to be playing for 30 years, is that actually a blessing or a curse? Of course it's a blessing, and that's something a lot of people that connect with a single song, they connect with it for a reason, and there's some sense of joy or some sense of themselves that they find and lose in that song.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I always say, fortunately I haven't written any hit songs. But even if I did, I think what's kind of cool with the community that I'm in, with the jam community, with guitar community, jazz, funk, that sort of thing, a lot of it, people are there for the vibe, and people are there for the environment that is created by the live band and what's happening.
Absolutely. Like I felt it today. It was like I was saying to Petar earlier, like when I was singing, it felt like, and like the horns were crescendoing and swelling up, and I was hearing the keypads like come in, filter up. It's like I was literally felt like I was being lifted, you know? It's like that support.
Yeah.
You don't feel that from a backing track. You don't feel that when you're singing by yourself. It's like, it's irreplaceable, and it's really, and that's always going to be a thing. Like, people are always going to like playing music together.
Yeah, totally.
It's like connection. It's social. It's everything.
Music is everything. That feels like a good place to stop. Jackson, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Really, really appreciate it, man. This is fun.
Yeah.
When it comes to imitation, I think it can be a really fun thing to do. We oftentimes want to imitate our heroes, but I think each person is unique and has something special to say for themselves. My process as far as music goes is I tried to imitate my heroes for years, and then I mixed my own self into those things and found my own voice. So I encourage you to do the same. Thanks for hanging. We'll see you next week. 2